Hello guys and welcome. Today I want to showcase to you my current Mystic Enchants spec for some of the specs that I've been playing as a warrior. I had a few comments on YouTube where many people were asking me about my opinions on the class or the Mystic Enchants. So today I'm going to be showing that to you guys. I'm going to start off by showcasing the Prot warrior build that I was using for leveling, which focuses mainly on having a lot of AoE threat and also AoE damage. This build focuses a lot more on AoE threat and AoE damage because we are running lots of dungeons and lots of open world content with huge packs of mobs. I also had my pocket mage leveling with me for most of the time, so it was very useful for me to be able to keep them alive. Also, the normal dungeon content is a little bit on the easier side. You don't need to be worrying too much about defense and all that stuff. It's very easy to tank it. Only when you are doing heroics things can be a little bit more troublesome, but other than that it should be quite easy for the most part. So guys, I'm going to start with the Protection Warrior talent tree, and here in Ascension you don't get as many talent points, and because we are only level 60 at max level, we don't have spare points to put into the other trees, so we need to focus all of our talent points in our main tree. In this case it will be the Protection Warrior, the spec that I was using for leveling, and this is a very easy thing to do. It's very self-explanatory. So here I'm increasing damage, here I'm increasing rage generation and a little bit of damage, then I'm going here for more critical. Some people might want to go here for survivability. I think this can also add a tiny bit more of survivability, but during leveling I think I had 2 points here, so I would have a bigger rage regeneration on my blood rage cooldown. Anyway, I'm on already the next tier, and this is self-explanatory. Improved Revenge is probably our best damage dealing ability. This is one of our best defensive cooldowns, and even here the block value is also very nice because it will proc more revenges for you, so this is actually helpful for a damage increase. Between this and this it's a little bit of a tough call because here you get passive armor, here you get a cooldown. It's a little bit interesting to see if you really need this cooldown if you are dealing with big abilities from mobs. Some people might want to go for this, but I think it's a little bit unnecessary. Especially at low level you are getting hit by many things in dungeons, in open world, you always have a little bit of rage, and later on you can have this to reduce the rage spent on every offensive ability. This is huge because it's for all abilities, not just for one, so I think this will be a much better option. So right now we have the disarm, and we get like this big defensive, which is this crowd control ability that can work as an interrupt. You also get this that improves your damage and also gives you a silence. So here you are getting two talents that are very useful both for PvE and PvP. And of course our best defensive cooldown has a reduction in its duration, so we can spam shield wall more often, which is very important. This is pretty much brain dead. It's like the tree completes itself on its own. You don't have to worry. Increase your damage from your weapon. Vigilance can be huge because even if you are just playing with someone else, having damage reduction and threat reduction on your friend can be very helpful. This will also improve your tankiness, your defensive, and will also give you a bigger chance of enraging you, and this is very important for another Mystic Enchant, which will be Enrage, and this can actually help you do more damage. So you can always get this one, but of course this one will be my priority first, then start getting here. Another talent that's a no-brainer. This one might be more useful for niche situations, but even then it's more rare to find the ideal scenario where you can spec into this without sacrificing anything else that's too important. For me it's pretty hard to avoid having the talent tree looking like this, and when you arrive here every point that you get is going to get spent. Warbringer is very nice for the mobility of the warrior, of course. This is a huge upgrade on our most spammable ability, which is Thunder Armor. A critical block is also really nice. This not only improves your tankiness, also improves your damage with Shield Slam. Once again you have another proc for Shield Slam that will also improve its damage. Here you can avoid these 2 points here if you want to have some dodge or something else, but this also improves a little bit of threat and damage, especially on big AoE packs when everything is hitting you. And of course our capstone talent Shockwave, and this tree is pretty self-explanatory. There are not many things that you can change. There are small things that you could move around if you wanted to go for a little bit more PvP utility kind of thing. But even then, this tree is almost like set in stone for Protection Warrior. And here I'm showcasing the Mystic Ancient spec that I used while leveling. I came up with these just because these were the ones that I was getting from the class quests from the Path of Ascension. Everyone gets at least 2 Mystic Ancients while leveling from those quests, and some of them like World Forged Mystic Ancients or drops from mobs, you know, those immersive drops where some mobs have a certain ability, like they have an enrage and they also drop the enrage Mystic Ancient, so it's always nice. I was focusing on AoE threat, AoE damage, and because I had the pocket mage leveling with me, it was important for me to be able to sustain AoE, not only AoE threat to save them from their own arcane explosion and blizzard pulling threat for them, also wanted to be able to mop down big AoE packs of mobs for dungeons. Especially in heroic dungeons there is lots of trash, and it's very easy to survive as a protection warrior. You have shield block, you have lots of great defensives, no healer should struggle very hard unless everyone on the dungeon is positioning themselves very poorly or the pulls are very bad. But if you are good with line of sighting and just doing decent pulls, it should be very easy. I was able to tank heroic dungeons as a fresh level 60 in full blue gear, and of course we do have very powerful gear on this game, so it should be very easy. Going for the right side, the first Mystic Ancients that I got, this one was really good to spam Thunderclaps, and Thunderclap was really nice early on because you had this nature damage. Later on, nature damage will not scale that well because you don't have spell power plate as a protection warrior, it will not make any sense. It does increase a little bit over time, but it's not like a big scaling thing at maximum level. But the threat generation is quite nice, it's still worth keeping this. You also get increased critical strike on your targets, so it's nice to keep that in mind. I could also build around critical strike with some other talents that come from other trees, like worrying about having deep wounds, about having cruelty. Where is cruelty? If you play warrior, you know cruelty. This is very nice extra flat 5% critical, and of course impale, which makes your critical damage be even stronger. But for now, this was the stuff that I got very easy. This comes from a class quest, these ones come from mobs that drop them. Then you can also have Blood and Thunder synergizes really well with Rend. If it's worth going for the improved Rend or not depends on how much you want to deal damage and how much that damage helps with threat generation. It's one of those things. Also the same thing, you want to have big armor as a protection warrior, but at some point this starts to scale better. Earlier on this doesn't scale that well, but if you don't have anything better to put, this might be one of your best options. Also earlier on you could get something like Glyph of Blocking. If you can get Glyph of Blocking, where is it? I think because I'm max level it doesn't tell me at which level I can get any glyph, because some glyphs you can only get them at later levels, which makes sense, especially for Shockwave and Devastate. You only get these abilities very close to the end of your leveling journey, so this should be probably the last ones that you get. These are very standard run-of-the-mill glyphs that you will get also in the Wrath of the Lich King protection warrior, so it's the usual stuff. And this can be nice because if you want to spam Devastate on lots of different targets, like you will be spamming Sunbar Armor trying to get AoE threat on many different targets, having 2 stacks makes things a lot easier. So Relentless Fury is an interesting thing to pair with Enrage, because as a protection warrior you'll be enraging lots of the time, and because you are taking so much damage and just defending and enraging so much, and you also have Blood Rage, you also have Berserker Rage, this increases the damage of Heroic Strike and Cleave, which is nice for single target and AoE. And I could now replace this one with the Glyph of Cleaving. Now this one is the improved Cleave, just adds a little bit of damage. I don't think this can be as good as just having a whole new extra target on your Cleave. the extra glyph target for me can be more interesting, and you can proc more stuff with a whole extra target on there. Other than that, it's quite simple actually. There is not much going around. You could have a Ravager here instead if you really want to go for uncapped AoE damage, for more consistent AoE damage, because Bulwark can be a little bit inconsistent. You can get an interrupt or a knockback and your channeling just stops and disappears, but Bulwark also works as a mini shield block. It does help a little bit with some extra blocking, so it's a nice defensive to have, but it's not as reliable or consistent, so it's a bit of a trade-off. And with Enduring Ages, which I have not farmed yet, I've been farming the DPS ones a bit more, but Enduring Ages to build around shield block would be a great option. And of course, even just having Protection Mastery, it's very consistent. You just have always more threat and you always have more damage mitigation. Shield block is one of the best abilities in the game, and you can also change completely the Mystic Enchants and build around shield block as well. I think Prot Warrior here in Ascension, with the way the glyphs work, you have so many options to work with as a Prot Warrior. I just haven't worked on them all yet, but I have so many ideas. I have way more ideas than room for them. I'm already at 11 Mystic Ancient specializations, and I still want to get more and to build more of this stuff, but it's a huge expense in Runes of Ascension. Unless you are farming all the scrolls, I can actually find a chest or just put down a chest, but I'm saving lots of scrolls from Warrior Mystic Enchants here, and this is very helpful. Every time you need a Mystic Enchant, if I'm loading it from a scroll, I'm not actually spending the runes, I'm just loading the scroll, and that saves me quite a few runes if you want to have all these Mystic Enchants. For the artifact Mystic Enchants, this one seems to be a little bit more aimed into Fury Warrior, because Fury Warrior can struggle a little bit with the mobility. Then this one seems to be very nice because it actually prevents you from becoming crowd controlled in some situations where you can get rooted and you can't move around to save your friends, so this can be very useful for that or for PvP. You can also use Iron Will in some other defensive builds. Iron Will is also a common talent from the Arms tree when you go for PvP talents. Siegebreaker is usually nice for AoE damage, and it also gives a knockback on a target, so it's sort of a mini defensive thing, but the fact that it spreads out to the targets can make it difficult to synergize with things like Bulwark, where you want everything to be clumped up together and you want to line of sight to have everything clumping up together. War Banner can be an option like Avatar, because you are reducing crowd control and you are actually having a little bit more movement speed, not only for yourself but also for your whole group, so this can be a nice thing. I should farm this one and just try it out as well. As you can see, I want to try everything, man. I have so many Mystic Ancient specs, and I think I'll be going up to almost 20 soon enough. While this leveling spec that I came up with can be very useful for leveling AoE damage and even dungeon runs, I don't think this will be ideal for boss fights, especially when you need proper damage mitigation or you need proper AoE threat because you have some really big bumpers. I think that you need to focus on more defensive stuff if you want to raid as a protection warrior, and you can try lots of different things. I think I was trying messing around with this. I just came up with this in a last ditch effort to just have a second tanking spec, but I want to do something a bit more serious and go for something that makes a bit more sense. For example, another thing to keep in mind is that if you want to go for Sword and Thunder, then Glyph of Resonating Power becomes a bit useless, because every time you are proccing this, you are not benefiting from this, and it's essentially the same as having this slot completely empty. I would obviously change this slot if I had a build that was using Sword and Thunder. These are the intricacies that I love on Project Ascension here with the Mystic Enchants for Prot Warrior, who have lots of options, lots of stuff that you can do for specific scenarios. Let's say I want to focus around shield block, so it will make sense to have like Iron Guard and Revengeful block, so I will have more uptime on shield block and my shield block will prevent more damage. I can go even further with the Glyph of Blocking here, and then of course I want to reduce stun durations on myself. For example, here, Jab Cross could be very nice for single target aggro because you have a huge boost in critical chance and critical strikes can be a huge source of threat. Thundering Blow and Seismic Shockwave, these could be very nice working together if you want to focus on shockwave builds. I think it's really hard not to go for Crackling Thunder just for the threat that it generates and the improved critical strike. For example, another thing that you want to pay attention, if you want to use Sword and Thunder, which will make your Thunderclap casts basically free, you have a 30% chance to proc that. Then what happens is like Glyph of Resonating Power becomes a diminishing return, because every time you get the Sword and Thunder proc, you are not benefiting from this glyph, and having this glyph here will become almost as having an empty spot every time you have a proc of Sword and Thunder. So there are these little intricacies where you need to pay attention and really read what every single glyph does, because sometimes you could actually be nerfing some of your own other glyphs depending on which combinations you choose to go for. But having this and then adding Enduring Ages here, which I have not collected yet, but I should try to get this one as soon as possible, this will be massive for a shield block build, and this will be incredible for physical damage mitigation. And not only you are improving your shield block by having it have a bigger duration, and you also improve your shield slam and you turn it into an AoE shield slam, but you also have your shield block more damage when you pair this with Iron Guard. So not only shield block lasts more and now it reduces more damage, you can also have shield block reduce spell damage, but this will take a little bit of the duration away. Things will even out, so there are lots of options that you can go if you are struggling with a lot of magic damage. And this is something that I noticed. Warrior as a class tends to struggle a bit more defending from lots of casters doing like shadow bolts and spells. Usually Warrior has very good physical damage mitigation but not as good magic damage mitigation, while having like Protection Mastery will be also a nice increase, but it's for overall damage because it reduces all damage taken, not only physical damage. So it's not just blockable damage but also magic damage. So this is one of those other things to keep in mind. If I want to reduce a lot of magic damage, I can go for this, and so my shield block will be shorter, but I'm reducing a lot more magic damage by doing this. And even if you want to spam a lot more shield walls, your shield wall once again will become weaker for big spikes of physical damage or damage overall, but you will be reducing magic damage more often by spamming shield wall more often, because it reduces all damage. At least that's what I'm understanding from reading this. I have not went into details to actually look into all the damage mitigation that I could look into, but I think it's a bit of a trade-off. If you are spamming a lot of shield wall and you don't need a big defensive for big spikes of damage, this can be nice, but having the 60% defense, not only physical damage but also for magical damage, and shield wall can be a very interesting defensive. So after Glyph of Blocking and after all this, it's pretty much open season on the other ones. You could add a little bit of cleaving, you know, anger management, enraged regeneration. These ones don't seem that good to me actually. And Brittle Rat, these ones also, this doesn't seem that useful for me as a protection warrior. What could you go for? Deep Wounds, but we are not in a critical strike build. Enrage seems very good. In most of the specs that I play, Enrage seems to be a very good option. Spell Reflection, having a little bit of a shorter cooldown, this is not a big thing because it's just 1 second. One of the smallest effects you can get from a Mystic Enchant, but it can help you a little bit with magical damage. Personally, I will still go for something like either Devastate or Shockwave. Shockwave cooldown reduction is a bit hard to negotiate because the stun can be just so useful, you know. But even then, for me, this is what looks better. It could be tough to deal with magical damage. If you have this, you are already reducing 3%, which is a very small amount. You can also go for Stormbolt. So I should have farmed Stormbolt already, but there are a few things that are missing from my collection. I need to still keep farming. I've been trying to get every single one of them, but I've been focusing more on the DPS specs, and I'll be showing those later on as well. Looking into Stormbolt takes me kinda a little bit into a rant about Protection Warrior, which is many people, they don't understand that Protection Warrior is actually a melee class. They are used to play on Wrath of the Lich King with Death Knights, and Death Knights have lots of ranged abilities. Paladins also have some ranged taunting ability for 3 targets, and unless you are spamming taunt, and taunt only gets you 1 target, the challenging shout is a little bit of a big cooldown, and the range is quite short. Even if you go for Roar of the Dread with the demoralizing shout, the cooldown is not that great, and especially the area of effect is quite small. It's only 10 yards. So what happens is many people, they forget that warriors need to be melee range of their targets to be able to just spam stuff, spam Devastate, Thunderclap, Shield Slam, Cleave, Shockwave. Everything that we have here on the bars, on our skills, are melee range abilities, and you need to be close to the targets to be able to generate threat. Challenging Shout will be like a taunt, but it will not generate any big threat. I have not tested yet Demoralizing Shout with Roar of the Dread, but I will highly doubt that this will be the equivalent of doing your proper tanking rotation. And if you are doing your proper tanking rotation, you are always able to generate much more threat, and the people around you just need to be smart enough to understand that you are a melee class, and you need to be close to things to actually hit them. How surprising is that? And I've been surprised by finding many people that are just pulling mobs away from the tank and complaining that the tanks are not able to grab them. And you can use Ravager trying to mitigate that, you can use Stormbolt trying to mitigate that, but it's pretty difficult to outplay when you have really bad players around you. Stormbolt can be a nice option because as a warrior you do struggle with the ranged stuff. If there are ranged mobs that are attacking from far away, you need to kite them and to actually line of sight them around the corner, around the doorway, some line of sight blocking. And many times when DPS classes and other classes, if people that are playing with you are less experienced with the game, or they are just a bit clueless because they have less experience with Classic or Burning Crusade, where the way you do the pulls matters a lot and the way you do the trash can matter a lot. Some people, they are unaware that the warriors only have one ranged taunt, which is this. This is your only real ranged ability that can save someone else. You can intervene to them, but it's not that big of a deal, it's not that good. You can Heroic Throw on someone, but Heroic Throw, it deals high threat, but it does not do a taunt effect. It's not like Righteous Defense from Paladins, where you can taunt 3 targets and they are guaranteed to come to you. So you don't have any real taunts. You can also use Challenging Shot, but this is a big cooldown. It is an emergency cooldown for AoE settings, and even the range is quite small. It's 10-yard range. It's the same as Demoralizing Shot. It's kind of like nearby, but not too far away. If you are in an open area where mobs are really far away and DPS are running away from you with the mobs, there is nothing you can do really, because you are a melee class and most of your stuff is melee range. Mocking Blow can be also a nice cooldown, 1 minute cooldown, but it's melee range. Everything that you can do to force creatures to attack you, it's usually in melee range. You can actually spec once again with Mystic Enchants, Roar of the Dread, yeah. So with this one you can actually improve your Demoralizing Shot for AoE threat, but in my opinion I haven't really been in a scenario where this will be an improvement over everything else, just because the AoE threat that you are getting here, you can try to get it with your regular Prot Warrior rotation. Stormbolt is one of those nice options because as a warrior you struggle with ranged stuff, and with Stormbolt you have another ranged ability. Not only it is a ranged ability, it can also stun, like Avenger Shield or like Concussion Blow, and you also get an AoE effect on your target, around your target, so it also does AoE damage. So this can be interesting, especially if you have mechanics. As you can see, even Ravager works well for AoE and all that, but you do have some Prot Warrior specific options that can help you a lot. Jab Cross looks very interesting for me for a single target, because you are increasing a lot your critical strike. And once again, you can build around critical strike if you go for cruelty and impale like you would go for any DPS spec, and even deep wounds if you want to have another bleed on your target, because you'll be doing so much critical hits, and of course those critical hits will trigger deep wounds. Jab cross seems to be an interesting way of boosting your critical hit chance by a lot. Other than that, you can be doing some mismatching here and there. Gladiator stance, in my opinion, it's a little bit more of a PvP thing. It actually makes you less tanky. It's a less tanky ability. Can be interesting to open up a lot of possibilities and actually PvP kind of thing, because you are no longer in defensive stance, so you don't have that extra threat generation. When you use Shield Slam will no longer give extra threat, and usually Shield Slam is quite useful to get mobs aggroing more onto you, so this makes you struggle a bit more for aggro. If you are trying to tank, I would not recommend it. And of course you can go for Protection Mastery. I think I was trying to make a more tanky build, so I was fiddling around with lots of different Mystic Enchants, and here I'm not focusing on anything particular, I'm just mismatching everything together. I do have improved Revengeful Block, which is nice so that I can spam a little bit more Shield Block, but I'm missing Enduring Ages, I'm missing some other ones. Here it's still like some sort of mismatch, amalgamation of different things that I wanted to try out. And you can still use this to tank in Heroic Dungeons. I was still tanking Heroic Dungeons with my leveling spec actually. If you are well geared, it should not be an issue, and if your healers are not like struggling to play their class, it should not be an issue. I was able to actually tank Heroics as a fresh level 60 with mostly blue gear. Of course I need to be a bit more careful with the pulls earlier on, but later on when you get geared up it becomes insanely easy. But there are just so many nice options that you can get, and I will start by always building around the epic Mystic Enchants, because let's say I want to build around Shockwave. I have options to go for that. I have these options here, so right now I'm empowering Shockwave. Once again, this is not great for damage, but this is great for the critical strike, and of course with Shockwave being a lot more powerful, and because this affects a group of targets, not just a single target, and now Shockwave also hits additional targets, this could make Shockwave crit on more different enemies. Protection Mastery for me it's a bit hard to beat for raiding environments, but for example in dungeons, because you can struggle with ranged attacks, Stormbolt can be nice. Even Ravager could be a nice option for AoE if you want to go crazy on AoE damage. Let's see what else do we have here. Other than this, if you want to go for massive shockwaves, of course you can add Cruelty. What else? Of course Shockwave, Devastate, attack power. We are building also a little bit around critical damage, so this can also be nice. So Jab Cross is another one that I need to find, but this one also seems very nice if you want to focus on huge critical damage, because this gives the flat 15% increase. It's a huge increase. There are just so many nice options, and I hope I can explore them all. I haven't yet been tanking too many raid bosses or world bosses. I think I've tanked like 1 or 2 times some world boss here and there, but for the most part I've focused on speccing for dungeons, and I'm really looking forward to doing Mythic Dungeons, and if I end up having to tank a few Mythic Dungeons, I'll be posting the Mystic Enchants that I'll be using for that. So as you guys can see, we have just so many options and so many things to try out. There are so many more specs that I want to try and to showcase to you guys. Eventually I'll start tanking some raid bosses and world bosses. I will build more dedicated specs for that, but I've already showcased you many ideas and options for that as well. But for leveling, this for me worked great, these Mystic Enchants, and I was able to do very competitive damage while I was also mitigating damage and tanking pretty nice nicely and not struggling too hard. Please don't forget to like the video and leave your ideas and comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content. Thank you very much for subscribing, for supporting my channel, for watching my videos, and see you on the next one in Warcraft Reborn.